Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're joined by special guest Spriha Tucker, who is the Field CTO at BuildKite. And she is going to talk to us about all things CI/CD. So, Spriha, thank you for coming on. For those who don't know you, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Spriha. I'm the Field CTO at BuildKite. Before this, I had founded a company called Aviator. We built tools to help run large Git monorepos. It's actually how I heard about BuildKite, because a lot of our largest customers, DoorDash and Figma and Slack and whatnot, they all used BuildKite. And we at Aviator had to integrate with a bunch of other developer tooling, including CI/CD and workflow orchestration type tooling. And so that's how I heard about BuildKite initially. Before that, I'll skip over some other entrepreneurial attempts, but before that, I was at Google on a bunch of different teams, actually, including operating systems teams like Fuchsia, the operating system, Android Things, which was also which is Android, but for the devices side of things, the Internet of Things division of Android. So including your smart speakers and smart displays and that sort of stuff, and also on search ads, APIs, and and also user-facing stuff. Started my career there as a Google APM on doing tweaks on the search ads UI, and that's how I got started. But yeah.
All right. Well, I need to derail the conversation immediately because I have a question for you.
Okay.
Related to Internet of Things and speakers.
Yes.
And Sonos.
Okay.
Because one of our things that we've been curious about is this is Never Rewrite. Sonos famously destroyed themselves last year with a giant rewrite that failed. If you have some experience with online speakers and things, do you have any thoughts?
Well, let me just say, over-the-air updates are difficult. Bluetooth is notoriously difficult. I wouldn't. Though I remember the incident here was more the app, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. I don't have much app writing experience, so I will stay out of it. And besides, things are hard.
Fair enough. Fair.
Yeah.
Very diplomatic.
I don't want to get myself into any hot water here, but for what it's worth, we had a lot of different partners back at Google. Like your class, like Samsung and LG and all those folks, and collaborating across large companies. Turns out has a lot of doing that exercise properly can teach you a lot about just running software engineering workflows and processes that scale well anyway. And so it was a good training ground in many senses.
Awesome. Okay, bringing the conversation back to CI/CD, I wanted to kick us off. I thought a good first question, going with our background of never rewriting. If you have a CI/CD pipeline, and many of the projects that I've been on where they did a large rewrite, they would have the CI/CD pipeline, they would have it build continuously, they would have it deploy continuously to their stage environment, but they would never deploy to production. They would never get it in front of customers. As an expert in the field, how does that work if you don't deploy? Like if you have it building, but you don't actually deploy it, how does that impact the whole thought process?
Man, I have some questions for you too.
Go.
Things like why didn't they deploy? But I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I mean the mental model I use to think about these things is feedback loops and iteration loops. So they're sort of fractal in nature. There's your local initial feedback loop. But then the sort of broader, the Russian doll over that is your, CI/CD, and then your staging pipeline, and after that it's your deployments. But the biggest feedback loop of them all, and sort of the most important one, is the value prop feedback loop. Like, are you actually providing value to your end customer or to to whoever it is that you're serving? And that feedback loop very much involves the customer seeing what you're doing.
Right.
And so, yeah, of course, I mean, why didn't they deploy, Jeff? I mean, what types of circumstances are we talking about here? Is it
the generic circumstance that we see a lot is I have a system and it's terrible, and so I'm going to rewrite it in a weekend, and so I can't show it to the customer until I get it all done.
Yeah. Yeah, this very much reminds me. So back at YC, also solid educational experience, honestly, because it's just trial by fire.
Hmm.
Um, One of the big things that they sort of drilled into everybody's heads is that you don't sort of just launch once. We used to think of launching as is sort of a big deal because you're launching a product, and internally it's like, oh, I'm finally flipping the switch and it's going to go outside. But we had this talk early on by the Airbnb folks, Brian Chesky, and the other Airbnb founders, and they told us that they had launched. They launched
Hmm.
so many times because every time they launched, it wasn't initially the very first time they launched, it wasn't as big of a blip in the market, but it got them exposure to a few folks. And then they could launch again, and they could just keep launching. But that exposure to reality, the contact with the real world,
Hmm.
is just so important that treating launches as one and done um, is unnecessarily putting a constraint on yourself that doesn't really need to be there. But yeah, and but I get it. Like you've worked on things and you kind of want to make sure your your work speaks to the quality of your craft and
Hmm.
that sort of thing. But if the quality of the craft at the moment isn't the biggest thing to de-risk, de-risk the other stuff. Look at order things in the order in which they ought to be, in the order things in the order at which they'll kill you. And if quality of craft is
Hmm.
lower down on that list, figure out what's up top. If the thing up top is just pure market validation or like need for your product, whatever, if that's the first thing that's going to kill you, try and de-risk that first and as soon as possible.
I like
Launching.
phrasing it that way,
Yeah, it's good. I haven't heard
which
that
kills
phrase
you.
before.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about people who cared more about the quality of their code than actually building something people used. And so it kind of hits the exact same de-risking conversations, but
Yeah, yeah,
in an interesting framed way. I don't think we've quite discussed yet.
yeah. I mean, sometimes, not to say, I don't think there's a point in just categorically dismissing um, caring about quality, because
Right.
it's of course important, and sometimes that is your differentiator. Um, Increasingly so, I think, in the future. I mean, but anyway, as code generation becomes commoditized, taste becomes more important. But
Hmm.
um, but yeah, the meta point of figure out what it is that of order stack rank the
Hmm.
things that'll kill you, and then try and get those feedback, like iteratively feedbacked out as fast as possible, is the broader point. And if quality of code and quality, like just general quality taste type things, are up on that list,
Right.
then gut check that, and reality contact that. Yeah. I keep doing this because it's like your product is reality.
Yeah, rubber meets
Yeah.
the road.
Yep. Rubber meeting the road. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I
Where do
guess
you
it.
guys? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna to summarize and say that if you don't deploy, like if you have your continuous build and integration and you don't deploy, you're not really doing CI/CD. It sounds like.
Continuous integration and continuous deployment is
Yeah.
what the CI and CD stand for.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, and whether you ought to be doing CI/CD or whatnot. I mean, these are all frameworks at the end of the day. The real thing you want to do is succeed at whatever it is that you're trying to do. And
All right.
so,
Now we got spicy. The
yeah.
CTO at BuildKite says you don't have to do CI/CD.
Well, the CTO really says,
No.
it says tighten the feedback loops
Yeah.
is the real point I'm trying to make, including um, ideally the feedback loops that are contributing most to the slowness of your, that are currently the biggest bottlenecks to you getting the highest quality feedback for the most risky thing,
Hmm.
Mhm.
is, I think, what I would say. So bottleneck identification against de-risking the most risky thing, and increasing that feedback loop is the ultimate CI/CD. Really. Yeah.
I love that because, yeah, you're de-risking, getting feedback against the most risky thing.
Yes.
That's
Exactly. Yeah. And that comes down to, if as an individual you're tasked with shipping a feature. Great. I mean, that's your project. Like your local dev loop and your actual
Right.
tests and CI/CD, right?
Mm-hmm.
That helps. If you're a manager and you're looking at the machine you're operating is really the team, then looking at that and looking at the bottlenecks there, and like maybe it's tooling there, maybe BuildKite. Anyway, but yeah, like perhaps it's tooling, perhaps it's processes, perhaps it's culture, perhaps it's information
Sure.
flow. It could be anything. But looking at that machine and looking at where the bottlenecks are, and then it's an organization. Where's
Yeah.
the how are you shipping?
CI is not just a programming term here.
Not
It's
just a
like
programming
Yes.
thing.
CIing your team, your organization, your
That's right.
product.
That's right. It's all
Right.
fractal. It's all
Yeah,
beautiful.
spirals out.
Well, it was funny because what you said that if you're a developer and you're working on a feature, in my head instantly the thing is, well, the first thing I need to do is validate that the feature is correct. Right? So I need
You're
to
an
get
experienced engineer, Jeff. That's right.
like because I have built features to spec and had no usage at all.
Yep.
Right.
That's at least half of the time I've spent professionally, and that's like a decade of work at this point that was useless.
Yep. Just like collaborate. Question the constraint in the first place is a very mature perspective. Yeah. I'm sure your PMs and your business side folks were very appreciative of you. Just collaborate.
Yes, appreciative is the word that they would use.
I do think though, like sitting down and just being open, saying, like, airing the concerns as early on as possible, regardless of whether it's really your responsibility, like your sort of your job title, so to speak. Like flagging that early on and collaboratively, like at least bringing that up is helpful, because if they've not thought of it, at least now they're thinking of it.
I made that mistake way too often early in my career, that there was like just the assumption that everybody had the stuff figured out, and now they just needed the work tasked out to everybody, and then I just had to pick the story and work on it.
Right.
I didn't question anything. It was like, okay, well, they know this is going to succeed. They have already figured out all the market research and everything. I just have to build it for them.
Yeah,
and that has been wrong most times.
Yes,
and
exactly.
So that perspective of it maturing is like asking those questions is like a sign of a mature engineer. I think it's 100% true, because it wasn't until I got later stages in my career that I was like asking those questions and killing projects if they don't make sense. Asking the tough questions. Do we even know people care about this? Or at least having to have at least one comment on the story before you work on it.
Yeah.
Don't just take it as fact.
Yep. Because these interfaces aren't as clean as the org structure would have you believe. The interfaces, meaning the human interfaces, like if you've got a separate UX research function, like the UX research function to PM, and then the PM to Eng, or the Eng to QA, or QA to whatever, like deployments or whatever, infra, the interfaces aren't as the APIs aren't as stable as
buggy.
as you would have, as they'd have you believe early on anyway. And then as you progress in your career, you're like, wait a minute, these are leaky.
Yes. For the modern kids, we'll say that when you get stories from the PMs, they're kind of asking you to vibe code what their features look like. I have written many features that exactly described what I was asked to do, and were totally not what they wanted.
Spiking a solution quickly has a lot of benefits there. Like, because at least it's the equivalent of sketching something out. When you're drawing things, it gets folks on the same page, and it gets that feedback loop between again, bringing things back to feedback loop. It brings the feedback loop between your, the person who is tasking you with things and you doing the tasks, brings that feedback loop tighter. Like show them a draft of things, show them a quick sketch, and de-risk that. Hey, is this what you mean? Like, is this what you're sort of looking for before you go off and build the whole thing out?
Right. I'm really liking this conversation, just because honestly, I've just been led in that direction so much recently. Is like we had a recent episode where we were talking about a failure of a product, and because of the failure of that product, there were layoffs.
Okay.
Because they overhired for this product, and they just overinvested in something that was not well researched enough. So it has consequences. again, back to the earlier me where I was like, oh, okay, everyone's got this figured out. Like, I imagine if I ever got to like Facebook or Google, I'd be like, okay, they've got pretty much infinite money. I'm not worried about them, running out of money.
Yeah.
That's not the case for like startups where you're like testing an idea and it really needs to succeed. So
Right.
Or
I
fail
could see
quickly.
even go ahead.
The idea needs to succeed or fail quickly.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Time is the real constraint.
But that seems like that's the case for pretty much every communication loop. It feels like what you're saying here is like
Yeah.
everything you do is CI with your
Yeah.
team, with your code, and like getting an idea. You want the feedback loop fast. If you're going to build something, or even like what Jeffrey was saying, I built something to spec, but it was the wrong thing. At
Yeah.
least try to get the thing that you're building to spec out, the rough version of it, as fast as possible, so you can get feedback that this is the wrong thing as fast as possible, and either drop it or pivot or whatnot.
Exactly.
But it's
Exactly.
just
The
like
more
a
times you have
series of
contact
beautiful
with
feedback loops.
reality, it's
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
say it again.
A
Yeah.
series of beautiful feedback loops. Yeah, I like
Yes,
that.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I was going to say, the more times you have contact with reality,
Right.
the more you're learning, and hence, the more real information you're getting, which is great.
So for me, I'm almost thinking that like in the inverted way of the longer I work on a thing, be it communication, programming, whatever, without checking in with someone else, the higher the risks that I'm doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, yeah. The higher the risks that you're sort of increasingly veering off track, even if it's
Mhm.
not, it, even if you just talk to someone about it and like
Mhm.
vibe check it out. Ideally, the someone as close as possible to the customer and the customer itself, ideally. But yeah, I mean, the longer you sort of or go on things and work on your own. Um, if the goal is to please the customer, then yeah. But there is something to be said about just the joy of doing things just for yourself sometimes, just sitting down and just enjoying the craft of writing code, or just enjoying the
Yeah.
act of creation itself. And
Code journaling.
yeah,
Just
journaling,
for no one
exactly.
else but me.
Yes. Yeah, if you're doing it for the joy of it, then we have no.
Yep.
Right. The name of the show is Never Rewrite, and we tell you never rewrite. If you're doing it for fun,
Yeah.
God bless.
Yeah. And
Yep.
it's yeah. If there's sometimes a need to just see beauty the way you want to see
Mm-hmm.
beauty, and go
Sure.
for it. Go forth and create. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so going back, I don't know. I have one thing that you both said that kind of became a phrase in my head, and I have to run it by you. It's it's okay to not communicate so long as you're exactly right, but if you're not exactly right, it pays to communicate. No, I've totally lost it. But we had that discussion of you either need to
Mhm.
succeed or fail quickly, and it's
Right.
like it's only okay to go a long time if you're successful, and you don't know if you're going to be successful because
And
you've gone
like
a long time.
communication tends to de-risk that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. With all types of stakeholders, and these days, I mean, yeah, there's so many different ways of spiking things out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Yeah.
What are the common ways of spacking things out these days?
Oh, it depends on again, like what it is that you're trying to de-risk. But yeah, I mean, you can, if it's a UI thing, and try and get like a quick sketch in front of them. If it's an API, try and like mock it out before you actually do the thing. If it's
Mhm.
I don't know, if it's a new process, try it in a small scale way. I mean, it depends on what it is that you're trying to do. But yeah, there's always, if actually, an easy hack to spike things out is to time constrain it to a bit of a ridiculous extent. Like if it's going to take, I don't know, if you know, quote unquote, it's going
Yes.
to take however long, I don't know, like a week or 2 weeks or whatever. Try and give yourself like an hour max. The constraint of having to do things really quickly
Mhm.
turns out a very great forcing function to surface out just the most important, to help you tease out what
Right.
the biggest risks, what the biggest rocks are, here, like what the biggest risks are to be de-risked, etc., etc. And it helps spike things, and it'll probably end up, and you'll work on it for an hour, and then you'll realize, hey, I kind of need another half an hour, another hour, and fine, it'll take 2 hours at the end of it. But
Mhm.
um but give yourself, I don't know, if you think it's going to take a week, bring it down to half an hour, bring it down to an hour, and then see what you would do if you were forced to do it in an hour. What's the one or two things to do?
It would look terrible, but it would work.
No, but it would spike it out. Spike it out meaning
Right.
it show it that. I'm not saying ship that.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Yeah.
get that in contact with some reality. You know, like
Right.
with other folks on the team, or like ask if, hey, is this what you're thinking? And, yeah.
Yeah, I used to have an amazing relationship with like a world-class designer.
Okay.
And I'd be like, all right, here's the data, and here's what we're trying to tell people. And here's a screen where I've put the data in a box for you. It's a very back-end engineer solution. Here's all the fields.
Right.
And you can look at it, and here's what we're trying to do. And he would look at it, and sometimes I would draw him a box and look at it and like, okay, got it. And then he'd come back with something, and I'd be like, oh my God, yes.
This is beautiful.
Exactly the right visual. Like now that I see it, I can't unsee it. I totally get it. And we can iterate the thing, but like it never would have occurred to me the way that you visualize this thing.
Yeah, visualization of data is an art, and some people are really good, and I've seen some pretty bad diagrams too. That I'm like, what are you even displaying here? So working with a world class one is kind of nice.
Yes, I can do a really bad job. Like that's.
Yeah, it's a language in a sense. It's communication. It requires such understanding of the psyche of the end user.
Yes.
Yeah. We think about that quite a lot actually at BuildKite. The developer psyche, both in both just generally as a company, but also in the moment at which BuildKite is helpful. Because you don't come to us when ideally we get out of your way when things are going great. Like if your builds and tests, if your pipelines are going great, we want to be as invisible as possible, get out of the way, get you going. But you do dig into details when things fail. And so for a while, giving you as many tools, as few or as many tools as necessary, depending on the context, and giving you as high signal to noise ratio of information as possible, so that we can reduce what we internally call time to actionable insight for the end developer, like the time it takes for them to find information that they can actually act upon. All of those words, the time to actionable insight, are all important there. We try to reduce that. Try to compress that time as much as possible for the end developer, and then for the dev platform folks, and then for the engineering managers over them and whatnot. But depending on the persona, that sort of North Star helps guide a bunch of our designs and helps guide our shipping and what we choose to put out there.
Do you do it continuously? And
oh yeah, everything. We live in continuous flow. Yeah. I mean, the more
you seem to be the perfect person for your role then too, because I can see how animated you get when you talk about the beauty of these loops.
The loop. That's right.
Yeah.
Feedback loops. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like your company, your organization, whatever it is that you want to call it, is successful. Usually in the context of the world it lives in, and so the more frequently you can contact that world, the better. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions, Jeffrey?
I thought I had one, but I.
Oh, did it just slip your mind? Oh no, I hate when that happens. Yeah. You will come to you at the middle of the night. You'll wake up and be like, "Oh, that was the word."
This is what I was going to ask Spriha, and now I've totally lost it. And more importantly, our massive viewing audience will never know the amazing question that I was going to ask. But I assure you, audience, it was an amazing question.
Tweet it out, Jeff. I'll reply on the tweet.
Well, I've got one then. Yeah. For your day-to-day, what is the biggest blocker you run into? What are some things that gum up the feedback loops the most frequently?
This is a very good question. At the moment, like at this current moment, it's honestly scaling up this side of the function. Like we've got a few folks on the field engineering side of things, but the combination that we're looking for is is not as cut and dry as just hiring a. We're looking for a specific type of combination. People who can be bridges between technical parts of the org, non-technical, between the company and outside, and between even for customers across, can bridge between their goals at at management levels, down to how that impacts their engineering org, and then figure out how we can solution BuildKite there, or like if it's useful, and if it's not, be honest about it and point them to the to things that might help. But given this combination of skills, folks that are technical, that are genuinely interested um, in in solutions, and helping customers solve problems, and bring that information back from the field to the company, making that feedback loop faster as well. At this current moment, it's the bottleneck is scaling out this team. So if you're listening to this and you're interested um, in field engineering, it's a very gratifying field.
So tell us more, because we didn't even get to that you're the field CTO at BuildKite, and I don't know exactly what that means. So tell us more about what being a field engineer and a field CTO means.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. At BuildKite specifically, our product lives in a technical context for each customer. To be useful, it's important for us to understand that technical context, and that technical context it includes other tools, it includes processes, but it also, most importantly, includes the problems they're really trying to solve, as a team, as a customer team, as a customer organization. So, thing number one is understanding, for our most strategic customers, ensuring that they're the solution selling part and the solutions creation, architecting part of it, is a big part. So both pre-sales and post-sales, that sort of thing. Then there's the doing this sort of stuff, being the technical face, so to speak, externally, meaning interfacing with the real world and with developers, and ensuring that the industry writ large understands what BuildKite does, and what they could potentially use us for, and that sort of thing. For context, we are folks use us for CI/CD, but we're really a workflow orchestrator. So you can use us. They start off using us for CI/CD, and a lot of our most sophisticated customers understand our primitives and then start using us for all sorts of things that are not just CI/CD. That are things. They'll run jobs on a schedule, and they'll run things on not just triggered by a Git commit, but they'll run all sorts of like we've got customers that run auto upgrades and triggered by packages being upgraded and all sorts of things. But anyway. Can get to that and that later, but yeah. So there's that part. Then there's there's bringing stuff back from the field into the company. This includes obviously from our customer base, but also from our not customers, meaning folks who don't currently use us, and then keeping up with the rest of the industry, both in terms of partnerships and competition. Keeping up with that, we have Given the product we have a very robust plugin ecosystem. A lot of it is actually, some of it is public, but a lot of it is within our customers' domains as well. And so making sure that our products work well within within the technical context of our customer base. And then lastly, also just enabling folks as much as possible within the company and outside. Within the company, meaning bridging the gap between engineering and GTM, like helping with sales enablement when necessary, or helping with, meaning
So your team essentially functions as the feedback loop for the organization as a whole to figure out if you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Yeah. And then, when we feel like we've learned something, putting it out there and doing some thought leadership type work, and then course correcting there because we get feedback all sorts. Like, we realize, oh, hey, we didn't quite hit the mark. We thought this was what we were going for. Turns out this other thing's resonating.
Yeah. So now I'm super curious. Can you tell us a story of a time when you went in with a customer call or whatever, and you determined, do not buy us. We are not the right solution.
Yeah.
And then what'd you do about that?
Yes, absolutely. So there was a customer that came in looking for deployment solutions, a CD solution. And they talked, and by the time I had a conversation with this person, it was already a second, third sort of evaluation. This was a very senior person at a company that's been around for decades at this point. They were actually considering doing a rewrite of a bunch of different things. Yeah, I see Jeff's his visceral reaction to it. But yes, they were specifically, and I asked them why existing, there's a whole market out there for opinionated deployment solutions, and why those didn't work. And digging in with him there revealed that they wanted to treat deployment environment. He was actually very much ahead of the curve. A lot of deployment solutions out there treat your deployment environments more preciously than they should. More preciously meaning like, oh, you've got certain blessed environments, and we'll deploy into these. Versus what he wanted was a system that was that treated environments themselves as very disposable, and it was architecturally very beautiful. And I do think that is the right way to do it in the medium to long term. But at that point in time, it was very clear that that it was this person's the quality of the craft was I wasn't entirely convinced that his company really wanted that, like really needed that at that point. And like it would have been a very uphill sale to force BuildKite down their throats and say, hey, yes, we can. Like, this is in fact,
they had pets, and he wanted cattle, and
I do think cattle is the right way to do it, to be completely honest. But I didn't think their company needed that at that point. And just talking to him increasingly revealed that, and he wanted to do it. And so we kept in touch because he wanted to do it. And then at the right time, he did come back, and at that point, then we did that. But at that point, it wasn't the right thing to do, because they clearly had other things that they first needed to ship.
They had pets, and the pets were working fine, so the value of switching to cattle wasn't there
at that time. Yeah. But fortunately, he comes back a few months later, and then this is in fact now a high priority for the company, for very good reasons too. And once you realize that, okay, this is important for the company to do, because value-wise, this will in fact help them achieve things that they want. It's no longer the BuildKite is much more easily able to connect to, as corporate as it sounds, to value providing. To actually helping them deliver value to their end customers.
I was getting that impression because I was like, some people want to sell for the sake of the sale because money's money, but the idea that a happy customer or providing the right solution for the customer is more important than just taking their money.
Yeah, it really
is a thing I wish most companies would do.
And honestly, like this was, you get something that's much more valuable than just short-term money there. You build trust.
Yes.
And that trust is, it's more authentic, but B, it's way more valuable in the long run.
Right.
Than just that initial account or that initial, whatever it is. But yeah, I learned this early on at Aviator, that was my first time, having to do sales and having to do, this sort of thing. turns out I like a very particular, like a consultative, let's sit down and I like technical consultative
Mm-hmm.
approaches to selling, if you want to call it that. But really, I like discussions more than sales. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. It's fine. Then we'll point you to the right other stuff.
Right. Yeah. Selling somebody the best thing that they're never going to use isn't helpful to anyone.
It
Yeah.
sours a relationship.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
But what is useful is figuring out their context, and so you know your product really well. They have their context. If you can bridge that gap and then figure out where their context is, and then creatively figure out how you can connect your dots, that's very useful. That's value to everybody, and GDP increases. Yay!
Awesome. I could keep going all day, but we are getting a little long, and don't want to cut off at the end randomly. But so, Spriha, if people want to learn more about you or get in contact with you or BuildKite, where should they go?
Yeah, if they want to get in contact with me, I'm Spriha at buildkite.com. Also on Twitter and LinkedIn, etc. X, LinkedIn, etc. But BuildKite is buildkite.com. And yeah, feel free to email me, contact us. We have a contact form there. And, I'd love to chat all things CI/CD, all things workflow orchestration. Yeah, deployments, all of that stuff. Maybe
Awesome. This has been
code bases. Yeah.
Yeah,
been
thank
really
you.
wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you both. You guys are great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.